razzle dazzle, we're the best. No, the courts aren't on your side, but they're not on the tenant side either. Jen, like, you are independently wealthy when you are naked. I am over treating property management the same as real estate sales. I guess I'll lead the witness. I think it's freaking scammy. Welcome to Hold It with PM Jen, the show for real estate investors who buy and hold forever and ever. Amen. Welcome, holders, to this episode of Hold It with PM Jen. This episode, the final episode of season 2, is a full circle moment for me. You see, I was speaking at a meetup in Lancaster just a couple of weeks ago. I was probably 10, 15 minutes into what I was talking about, and there was this woman in the crowd, and I kept catching her eye, and I was like, I know her, I know her, I know her. And you can imagine, I'm standing up in front of a room with all my energy trying to deliver this. In this particular meetup, I wasn't given much time, so I was really focused, but I was so distracted. In the middle of my talk, I was like, I know you. We went to high school together, didn't we? She goes, yeah. And I even came up with her maiden name in that moment, but that's all I could come up with. But we reconnected there, and I brought her on the podcast today because you guys, I'm so excited. Rebecca Steyer from Lancaster, Pennsylvania is with me. She is my friend from high school, and she owns 30 doors and self-manages, is raising a young family. This is her full-time. She's off the W-2. And guys, her story is really inspirational, and I just love so much that she is from where I'm from, right? Like this is a sliding doors kind of moment. So we're gonna dig into her early exposure to real estate and her whole career. Rebecca, welcome, and thank you for making me your very first podcast.
Well, thank you.
Although we lived in Lancaster, southern Lancaster County, and our school was actually quite large. So I wanna say we had about 400 and maybe 70 kids in our graduating class.
So what's interesting is multiple times I ended up working with someone and found out that I was in the same class as them, but we didn't know each other. I'm like, how is that even possible?
Right. Because this was the kind of school district where you grew up kindergarten to 12th together. Like people didn't move around a lot. Well, then we're coming to this from the same place. Tell me about your life in Lancaster County growing up. What did mom and dad do? What did you think you were gonna do?
So my family lived through my father a lot. He had intense ADHD, and he was the guy that could do everything and wanted to do everything. And he was an investor, but that wasn't like his persona. He grew up on a farm, and I don't know, we owned horses at one point. Which sounds really bougie now. But it was sort of like a hobby to him. He wasn't like an avid horse rider. We just happened to have horses. We also had goats. We bred goats. We had sheep. And this was just this weird little hodgepodge, I guess you would call that homesteading now.
Yeah.
Just all these things. And we lived in a wooded area. So we weren't doing this on a farm. We were doing this kind of in the woods. And he had so many interests. At one point he did buy a farm. We would go to auctions. When I was really young, my parents weren't super great at finding sitters. So my father was a contractor, and I would go with him on the job. And I would also spend lots of time in the hardware store with him.
Oh, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, he probably did spend a lot of time getting supplies, and he's talking to people, and yeah. By the way, this is such a familiar life. We lived on the woods or in a rural area. We're getting multiple streams of income, sometimes through hobbies, sometimes they're not positive streams of income, they're negative streams of income, right? So you're literally on the job site with your contractor dad a lot, probably.
Quite a bit. In fact, so much that when he would go back to job sites, they would be like, oh, where's the little baby that was with you?
Where's that baby we love so much about your construction company?
Yeah. That's how not structured it was.
Got it. So dad, and you're seeing all this, and you say he has a construction company, he's doing that work some of the time, but you told me he did some investing, he did some real estate investing. What did that look like in your childhood?
So he owned a property that was about 8 acres, and he put a house on it. Just an insight to my dad, he put the house on the wrong portion of the property. It was partially on his neighbor's property. So like that's just like the ADHD of my dad. Like, let's put a house here. Oh wait, it's in the wrong spot. So anyway, long story short, he had this 8 acre property. A lot of it was wooded. He just plunked down a bunch of mobile homes. And that was sort of like his introduction to investing. He also, at one point, more insight to my dad, he had a felony charge for marijuana possession, which is kind of laughable these days.
I was going to say, these days it's laughable, but back then that was hugely bad for him.
Yeah, and he actually did some time in prison for it. So it kind of hurt the ability for him to just get a like, regular W-2 job. So he was a contractor. He supplemented his income with rentals. He also had a campground that he like never really got off the ground. He got all these approval plans. After he passed away, I saw all these approval plans. Really, really cool stuff. I actually have that. That's something that I have. So I have the 30 units and I have his campground, which is something I need to do with something with.
So guys, at the end of this episode, you're going to get Rebecca's email. If you know what to do with campgrounds, you're going to reach out to her. Where's the campground at? Is it down in Lancaster?
Yeah, it's in Conestoga.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So dad messed around with a lot of this kind of stuff. When you, like, let's kind of put you, did you fly the nest at 18? Did you leave your home then?
So interestingly, my father was very like, you don't need to go to college. I've worked out fine, like very anti-college. And when I graduated from high school, I didn't apply myself in high school. I just was more invested in like friends and like just being active. I worked and he approached me and he said, it would be really nice. Like your mom thinks you should go to college. Oh, mom wants me to go to college. So I had no grades to like speak of. So I did end up going to college. I went to community college. I didn't do super great. And my grandmother had given me some money, not a whole lot of money. And I felt really terrible because she was she was a super saver. She was trying really, really hard to make sure that she could give us something. And I felt so guilty for blowing that money. And after that, I really applied myself. So I took college serious. It wasn't just a conversation. It was something that I decided I wanted to do. And so I finished my 2-year degree. And then at 20, I went to 𝐸 University in the Poconos.
Oh, okay. So that's when you kind of leave home and you...
Yeah.
Okay. So the question I have as somebody who grew up with an entrepreneurial family, I'm kind of interested in that point of time. We're leaving the family nest. You've seen that's the way your family kind of moved and operated, and you saw this ADHD investing behavior of your dad. What was your opinion of real estate investing as you leave and what it was going to maybe have for you in your life? Did you think about it? Did you go, oh, I'm attracted to that? Or was just, that's something dad did. I'm out of here. Like, what did you think?
So it's really hard to escape what your parents do when it's like entrepreneurial. And I knew that at some point I might come back to that. I might like revisit that, but I really wanted to I was into hotel management. So I was like, this is much better. This is cleaner. The people don't stay, they like leave after the fact. I found hotel management a lot more attractive. Okay. I don't know how much influence that had from like my dad being a landlord. Like that just seemed really cool to me. Like the vacation life, like
clean,
tourism
neat,
was very interesting
versus real. My mom had a daycare, and I am child-free and 44. I just recognize
my husband's mother had a daycare.
Well, and you recognize the work in it.
Yeah.
It really represents a lot of work. Okay, so you pursue hotel management for your education, but I know you had a pretty exciting, I don't know if it's exciting, but good career, strong career in merchandising. Tell me just a little bit about that W-2 life, because we're going to get you out of that soon in this storytelling session. What was that life for you when you had it?
So when I graduated from college, I think this builds on the real estate piece. I had a really strong work ethic, and my parents were very anti-debt. Don't get into debt, don't take out student loans. So when I was in college, I worked while I was in college and had it paid off like 6 months after I graduated, which is great. So I was like ready to start a career. I was like, oh, like I'm free and clear with debt. Like, let's start a career. I want to bury myself in a career. That's really what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I was just struggling to find something. I ended up working in the convenience store business. My husband was working in the convenience store business at the time, and he was trying to find his own footing. He was really into like computers and cars, and convenience stores didn't quite fit into that, but it made sense at the time.
Okay.
So I got into the convenience store business, which still falls under the umbrella of hospitality.
Okay.
It's still food service. There's still customer service. It made sense. It was in the thing about the convenience store business is it's very gritty, and there's a lot of similarities between the convenience store business and property management. And it didn't really occur to me till later on. I was like, this was like the perfect setup to becoming a landlord and like screening tenants and all these connections. So it was really great to feel very prepared when I finally
Yeah.
went
My
beyond.
observation is, though, I think when you're raised in and I'm going to say a gritty way, and I don't mean to say that negatively, but you
No,
were
no,
in the
I think that's great.
you were in the entrepreneurial, you saw it. I think you're attracted to that in a career. And I reflect on, like, again, raised gritty. You heard the episode with my dad. Well, you haven't yet because it hasn't come out, but I've listened to it recently. And you'll see, like, in my career, I was really attracted to the do-it-yourself. Like, everything's your problem. You might be on the roof today. You might be in the cellar. Like, you're going to have an adventure today, right? A gritty, real-life adventure. And I loved that about real estate. And when I took a little brief sabbatical in business school and went to, like, a big business that was really sanitized and corporate, I had a huge aversion. And so it makes sense. Now, in the convenience store business, you weren't like working in the convenience store serving customers. What was your role there?
So my first position, I was an assistant manager, and then I became an assistant general manager. And so I was hiring people, I was making schedules. The thing about the convenience store business is it's not attractive, it's not flashy, it's not something that people choose. It's something that like ends up choosing them at some point, but it pays very well.
Okay.
And yeah, and a lot of people don't understand when you really think about how much people are spending on the merchandise in the convenience store. I used to joke if it wasn't buckled down, they were like throwing it at me and buying whatever, depending on which store I was working at. So initially, like my first 4 years in the convenience store business, I was in the store and I was working the store, but I was the manager. I was running the schedule. I was counting cash. Like I was doing the managerial stuff. I was checking in vendors, and managing like a store. And then I left that for a short period of time, and I became an investment advisor. And I was like, this is cool. I'm learning about the stock market, and I'm
He's an
learning all the
investment advisor, like a Charles Schwab kind of company.
yeah,
You wanted to
yeah,
help people who were planning for their future with their investments.
correct.
Wow. So you left
Yeah.
that, and did you have to get education to get that job?
Yeah. Yeah. So I studied 14 hours a day for several months to get my Series 7 to become a stockbroker.
Okay. So that's a huge change. Why? What did that represent for you?
So I think it goes back to the fact that like I was working for someone else. I was working a lot of hours. People were calling off. My job was running me. I wasn't running my job necessarily. I didn't have control of my raises. I was getting raises, but I remember at one point I got a promotion, but I didn't get a raise. And I got a raise as part of the promotion, but I think it was like a year later. I was like, hey, am I getting a raise this year? And they said, well, no, you got promoted last year. And I just, working in the corporate environment is its own thing. And I just did not jam well with that. And, I could fit into that box, but I thought back to my dad, he would go home in the middle of the day and take a nap. as an entrepreneur.
So if you were an investment advisor, is that essentially running your own book of business, running your own little
Exactly.
fiefdom? Okay.
Yes, running my own business, having my own clients, going to the office when I wanted to go to the office.
How did that pan
Um,
out? Because you said you
it
left it
didn't.
briefly.
It was 2008.
Okay. Okay. So you were attracted to something and the timing was off.
The timing was way off. I sold something during the worst day of the market during the Great Recession. So good for me. I sold something. I made a sale that day, but maybe they still have it. I don't know. I should call them and ask them. They're a friend of mine.
I was gonna say.
And
Yeah. So,
anyway,
so you
so
did that for a short while then?
I did that for about a year, 2 years,
Okay.
like somewhere in that window. It's weird because there was some overlap because I was training and interviewing. The process was long. They really screened me hard to make sure I was the right candidate, but it was a terrible time. People were very emotional about their portfolios. It involved a lot of cold calling and going to people's homes and talking to them, and they just were super uncomfortable. Rightfully so. Their retirement accounts were decimated in a very short time.
So then back to the convenience store business, but if I remember correctly, in a more corporate role.
Yes. So I went back to the convenience store business in a corporate role. It was only meant to be temporary. It started as a food service like training role. So I was teaching food safety. I was teaching managers how to be profitable in their respectful positions. And then I was also doing a lot of SOPs. So I was writing standard operating procedures or assisting with writing standard operating procedures for recipes, because it was the food aspect. And if you've ever been to Wawa and Sheetz, like they are a heavy competitor. It's very detailed. It's making sure the equipment's running properly, talking with salespeople to sell you equipment to make your kitchens more efficient, that sort of thing.
Wow.
So
I think that's going to come into play when I look at successful personal investors who can self-manage 30 doors, and you're growing. So like the difference is those who understand systems and process and those who don't. So it
Yes.
sounds to me like, just going back to like you call it ADHD in your dad, and I'm sure that's what was going on, but maybe from a systems and processes perspective, he was just missing those entirely. So every day
Yes.
he was making fresh new decisions about whatever was in front of him. You didn't learn, you have that ability, use that in your career. And I think it's fair to say we'll find out you're probably using that a lot in your day-to-day investing life now. You shared with me on a call we had a couple weeks ago about how you got started in investing, and I'd love for you to tell that story. So you're in this corporate role in the convenience store. Just first of all, personally, married, single, where were you, and when was this?
So I met my husband at 18, so we had pretty much always been together.
Okay.
Which is great. So at the point where I was ready to invest, we had just bought a house. I had worked in the convenience store business for my 4 or 5 years, and I was about a little over 4 years.
When is
And I
this
actually,
in time?
so I purchased my first property in 2013.
Gotcha.
So this was after 2008. Property was still really expensive, and there was a lot of people who had bottomed out on their mortgages and things were getting repossessed. I originally started looking at REO properties. So a friend of mine that I had met, she approached me and said, "Why don't we do something in real estate together?" And I was like, "All right, let's try this." And I had some money left over from after we purchased our house.
And was
We
the
were supposed
proposal to
to
do a flip? Was that kind of it?
we didn't have any money, and we thought, oh, well, we'll flip something and then we'll have some money. I don't know what the logic was there. I mean, technically, yes, that's true. You can do that. But I just think we thought, well, we need fast money before we can, have the stability of a buy and hold.
Okay.
So that was the thought. And we were looking at REO properties together. We had shared each other's financial information. She was working specifically for a very large company. She was a project manager in IT, and she was working remotely. She made very good money, and she was this huge project manager. And she had moved to the area. She was relatively new, and I met her through quilting. That's a whole nother story. We were looking at these properties together, and a lot of them were just really blighted in that people had purchased them, they fell underwater in their mortgage, and they did a lot of damage to them before they were returned to the bank to be sold. So some of these REO properties were just intentionally damaged, which was just, I don't know. We were in over our heads. We had thought about putting offers in, and she started seeing someone who was like the startup king, and she was very entrepreneurial herself. So they ended up becoming business partners and doing their own endeavor, and it's still growing and doing really well today. So I continued looking at real estate, but I was looking
drop in on that. Something you brought up that I think a lot of listeners can identify with. You were a normal person.
Yes.
Normal upbringing, right? You've got your husband, you've got your house, no kids at this point, right?
Nope.
Okay.
No kids.
So you're living your life, maybe you're watching TV, you and your friend get this idea, and then the reality hits. You start walking the doors. Okay, there's one available. Let's go, friend. And then you talk about being in those houses and being in over your head. And I want you to, because here's the thing, you proceeded on. Many people go home and go, I'm scared. I'm going home and I'm going to put more money in the stock market or do this other thing. I want you to talk about that. Like, what were the conversations like at home? What were the conversations like with your friend? How were you thinking about this? How were you evaluating the risk, and what did it mean, right? Like, if you mess this up, what would that have meant to you and your husband?
Yeah, so there was one property that we went to that had 3 sump pumps in the basement, and I was like, why would you have 3 sump pumps? And it also had this was in Willow Street, by the way, so this was like local. Long story short, I was making all these phone calls trying to figure out why this would happen. And when you buy this stuff, you're kind of stuck with the issues. I'm like, how big of an issue is this? I liked the house overall. It seemed like it didn't have a whole lot of cosmetic things, but it just had this super wet basement. So like that was just one example of, it was just a huge time burn trying to
get this certainty, because what I hear you saying is,
Correct.
I liked the house. I saw a problem. I wanted to move forward, but only with a plan to address this problem. So when you say time suck, you were making calls trying to problem solve for a property you don't even own.
Correct.
And what I see many investors, many male investors doing is going, I'll figure it out. It can't be that big of a deal. And listen, it's just a different way of thinking about things. Are they right? Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. Rebecca, in that case, could she have solved that problem once she owned it? Probably eventually. Right?
Yeah.
But she sensed danger. I don't have a good way of going about this. And I'll ask you, like, to wrap that up. So when we think about that risk, what was on the line? Was it like all the money my husband and I have saved over the last 2 years for this goal? Or is it like my credit would have been shot? Like, what was really on the line if this didn't work out, if you didn't figure out the sump pump and had bought that?
I wasn't worried about the money, surprisingly. Like, I wasn't worried about like, oh, like this is going to equate to financial ruin. I don't know why. I wasn't too concerned about that. I was more worried about like, just complete and total failure. Like, just like total failure. Like, I'm going to buy this house that I'm going to get stuck with, and I'm not going to be able to sell. It's just going to be this thing that I'm stuck with that's like a mess, and it's just that's all. That's the only further I thought about it.
And between you and your husband, did your husband participate in this? Was he active in this? Or was this like, Rebecca, do whatever you want?
Hey, it's PM Jen. That stands for Property Manager Jen. And if you're in this game to build real wealth that gives your family options, freedom, and security, you're in the right place. I specialize in the hold part of the buy and hold strategy. With over 22 years of experience managing portfolios of 300 to 700 doors, I've seen it all, and I'm not here to sugarcoat it. See, holding real estate is powerful, but it's also gritty, complicated, and full of surprises. And that's why I created Hold It with PM Jen, to give you the real stories, the real advice, and the real strategy you need to hold strong for the next 30, 40, even 50 years. So follow me at Hold It with PM Jen on socials, and let's never sell, okay?
Yeah, I don't think he was really involved a whole lot at all at that process. Like, he might have gone to some houses with us. I definitely went to auctions. I went to things that were going to go up to auction. I had no fear of just looking at things and just looking and looking and looking and looking and like
Great.
style of houses and types of problems.
How long did you look before you made your first purchase?
So I did that for maybe like 6 to 9 months. And yeah, I mean, it was, some people spend a really long time kicking around the idea of real estate. So I spent about 6 to 9 months. I went to an auction and I did a home inspection on it. Very responsible of me.
So you paid an inspector to go out and inspect it on the hope that you were going to bid to win that home.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big
Yeah, so I had
investment for that.
financials. Yeah. It was, it sold for $75,000. Just for like, it got to 70,000 and I stopped bidding. Yeah. And that was the high price for it was supposed to be 65. So I was like, okay, I'll go up to 70. It got to 70 and I stood my ground. I said I would not go higher than 70. It sold at 75.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a dig now. It's
A little
bit of a dig.
bit, but I'm proud of you for making a plan and then sticking to it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Listen, at the end of the day, you didn't get that opportunity. You missed an opportunity. However, what you proved was you can make a set of rules and stick to them and succeed. It doesn't mean you get every deal. So tell me the story about that first deal, the one that you were going to do this together with your friend. Your friend is now very busy doing her great, successful startup business. So she's no longer a partner. Did you look for a new partner? Were you like, I'm going to do this on my own? And then tell me the first deal.
So I was ready to do it on my own. So I started, this is lazy, but I stopped looking at properties and I started just working with the numbers. And I would pull things off. I had access to the MLS. I would pull things off the MLS. Some of it was REO. And I had decided REOs were just too big of projects for me. They were just too big for me to bite off. I was willing to purchase something that needed work. It didn't necessarily have to be turnkey. So I was very comfortable with multifamily. A lot of people aren't comfortable with multifamily right out of the gate, but I was very comfortable with multifamily right out of the gate. And that's where I saw the profit. I would crunch the numbers and I would look and see how much money was left over. And I would crunch the numbers and see how much money was left over. And I was just really frustrated because I'm like, why are people buying these? Why are people buying these? There's more money than single family, but there's not very much money left when you crunch all these numbers. And I was just so frustrated. So I crunched numbers for about a year straight, just pulling stuff off the MLS, crunching the numbers. And at that point in time, maybe like halfway through, I found BiggerPockets forums. Okay. And it was like somebody just opened up like my universe in the way of I could ask another investor human how they were crunching their numbers. And they were like, this is exactly what I do when I crunch my numbers back of the napkin before I even take something serious, like really serious. And I was just like, oh my goodness. So it was really,
when you're crunching numbers and you're discovering BiggerPockets, where is that work occurring? Is this like on your iPad, on your couch? Is this in your home office? And how much time were you dedicating to this?
I was doing it all night.
Oh, okay. So you're
Like, I was
home, eating your supper, and now it's number time, and you do math until you fall asleep.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, I was just obsessed.
Interesting. And what, like, when you found that deal and did the deal, right? Because you're shopping, you're running numbers, you're preparing. What for? Was it I want to be a real estate investor, or I want a passive stream of income, or what is it? What's driving you?
I just thought about my dad coming home in the middle of the day, sleeping on the couch. He had so much control over his day and over his life. He could pick and choose what he wanted to do that day. He wanted to build a shed. He went and he built a shed. Like he just had so much freedom. Sure, he had tenants that were difficult. Sure, he had all the other things, but he just had so much freedom and creativity and freedom over his day. He had relatively passive income. If he got calls for jobs he did plumbing work, he did electrical work. If he got calls for jobs, he can pick and choose what he wanted to do. He really just had so much freedom and freedom of creativity. And I was like, I get it now. I always thought it was odd. I always thought it was strange, but I'm like, I understand like what he was really about.
I think I understand now what drove you that year and what you were working toward. So let's, the first deal, what was it? How'd you find it? And
so at that point, my husband and I, we were considering like pregnancy. So like I was like having baby brain, thinking about these things. We were doing Insanity, which is a very intense workout program. Yeah, I don't know why we were doing it. It was fun. We were doing it in our basement. I pulled a property where the numbers worked. And I was just like in a different zone at that point in time. I was like, it'll be gone in 5 minutes. Because anything where the numbers worked, it was just gone, lickety split. It sat on the market. And it had this wallpaper. I have a picture of this wallpaper, by the way. It had this wallpaper. And I just remember like working myself out like crazy, sweating, like you're just thinking of anything to take your mind off of how crazy you're working out in this program. And I just was thinking about this wallpaper and this property that like hadn't moved. So I remember thinking after I was done working out, I'm like, I need to go look at this place. It's been sitting on the market for a month. I just need to go do it. So I went and I called the agent that sold us our home, and we looked at the property, and I was a completely different person. So when we purchased our house, I was super critical. I was very careful. I was like kind of prickly. I was difficult. I was like not a warm and fuzzy person to deal with. And when I looked at this property, the agent was just like, you're very different with this. And I was just ready. I had looked at so many properties and I was like, this looks great.
your instincts were telling you, but you could trust them because you had done so much work.
Correct. That is exactly it. I had done all the work. I knew the numbers would work. It was in an excellent location. It was
What
3
was it?
units.
A double, a triple, a quad.
Yeah, so it was 3 units, but it was only zoned as a single family residential. The reason that it sat so long was the investors were calling. They were calling the city and they said, hey, this is zoned as single family. Will you recognize it as 3 units? And they told people no. They just said, no, we won't recognize it as 3 units. And they got so many calls that they finally went and looked at the place. So the Bureau of Property Maintenance sent their guys out and they were like, oh, yeah, we'll totally recognize this as 3 units. So after telling everyone no, the timing just worked. And I put an offer in right when they were ready to give me a yes. And I walked the property with the property maintenance inspectors for the city. And I said, what do I need to do? They said, you're going to need smoke alarms. You're going to need a kitchen in this 1 unit because it doesn't have a kitchen. You know, they gave me a list of everything I needed. And I put the offer in. And there was actually another offer at that time. So I did have some luck on my side. I made a little bit more aggressive offer and I got the property.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was it smooth taking that over, putting in that kitchen and all the things they wanted? Did it kind of go as you had planned, or did you have any obstacles?
So the unit that the woman who owned the property, she had bought it in like 1942. She ran a jewelry store out of it. So it was mixed use residential, and the jewelry store was no more, and the portion of the house that she lived in was in great shape. So I was able to rent out that bottom unit, no problem. That's the beauty of multifamily. You can rent out one, you can do renovations on the other and your mortgage is still paid. So the renovations went very slow. I told my dad about it eventually. I was very nervous. He was very anti-invest in the city because he didn't like that kind of oversight. He liked being freewheeling and doing his own thing. He said he was still very proud though. He was still like very excited about it. I think he felt a little bit like he should have showed me more things. Like I don't think he expected me to end up being an investor. And he was like, oh, like I should have showed you how to do contracting stuff. Like I should have showed you how to like build stuff and like do things like that. So he was a little bit regretful that he didn't spend more time with me in that zone.
Well,
He raised me,
to be clear,
you know.
he daddy daycared at the job site. Maybe you should have paid more attention. I mean, he did
I
his part.
did. I did. There were definitely some moments looking back where I was just like, shoo, the client wanted one thing and he was like, absolutely not, I'm not doing it that way. And like, I definitely learned some
I feel like
things.
I've worked on a lot of jobs with people like your dad. So the renovations took longer than you expected, but in general, you
Absolutely.
got it together. You're still working, of course, the full-time corporate, job, merchandising and things like that. So that's 2013. Today in 2025, you're sitting on about 30 doors. Is it a straight linear path up from 0 to 30? Does it have ups and downs? Talk about that. Is it just kind of I slowly have grown, or how have the acquisitions gone for you?
So between that property and the second property, there was a lot of lag. Part of it was the renovation. Part of it was some personal stuff.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you were
So
trying to start your family. That's super
exactly.
consumptive.
Yeah. So there was some personal stuff there, and when it came time for so actually I did a little bit of like room renting. So I house hacked a little bit.
In your
We had an
personal
extra
home?
in my personal home.
Love it.
Um, yeah. So I rented a room. We did that for about 5 years, and it was a nice little extra stream of income. We were undergoing fertility treatment, which is very expensive.
Yes.
It made sense I didn't want to throw a wrench into like the ability to continue investing. And it was like a way for us to have some money come in, and not burn it all up for just treatment. I mean, what's not a covered event, that's a whole nother. So, where was I going with that?
Well, we were
And
house hacking. We're taking some time between the first one and the second one, which, by the way, super freaking common. It's very common for people to take a while to get the first one and then to take a while to digest the first one. It gets faster as you go on. So, like, just for anybody listening, she's feeling like, oh gosh, it took me a while for all these reasons. It took you a while because it was your first one. And
yeah,
on top
yeah.
of all the other reasons, but that's life.
In the whole scheme of things, though, I've seen other people attend meetups and they come to meetups and they just get all this information. They get all this information. They just don't pull that trigger. They just don't do it. And I was just ready. When I finally knew my numbers and I saw the property, I was like, this is it. Like, this is it. And it really is one of my top properties still. I was very careful. It's in an A-class neighborhood. It's easy to rent. I have great tenants all the time there. They're all one-bedroom units, so people don't have a lot of staying power there because they're one-bedroom units. But my most common renter in that area is the person that comes to Lancaster County, graduates college, but wants to stay. And then they decide to go, buy a house and start a family. So they're like my most common demographic there.
Nice.
Um,
Well, and it's right in town, so nice one bedrooms in town, I think always go. So I want to talk, so you grew this, and at some point you were going to leave the W-2. And I'd love to talk about when that happened and what your thought process was. Did you have milestones you felt like you had to hit? Like, when did you give yourself permission? And did your husband have anything to say about this? This is a really big milestone you've achieved, and I really want you to talk through kind of how that was in your thought process, because it helps so many other people who are anticipating that.
Yeah, so I actually had spent so much time in this zone where I was like, do I leave? Do I not leave? Do I leave? Do I not leave? I actually I knew I could. And let me back up a little bit. So the second property, my husband and I purchased together. So the first property I purchased with my own money, and I was doing well with it. We purchased the second property together. He's still not super into like he's more of a financial partner. He trusts my decisions, which is great.
I got one of those too. We got to get those two together in a real estate investor spouse support group. And let them talk to other like spouses are like, what are they doing?
Yeah. Yeah, he's great. So I purchased that property and the second property, and very quickly we purchased the other property like a couple months later.
Then you get a third property after the second
Yes.
very quickly.
Yeah.
Like 2 and 3 come like boom, boom.
And it really boiled down to, I learned with the first property and I learned with the second property, when the numbers work, you jump on it. When the numbers work, you need to get in there because other investors are doing the same exact thing. It's not something, it's passive to get into it, but once you recognize what those numbers look like, no one else is waiting. Like this isn't a, hey, I might put in an offer on that. Like it doesn't work that way. And so I think that's another reason why people don't pull the trigger right away. They're not going to move fast enough.
That's
and it
why
might be
new
because they don't-
investors, it's really hard for them to succeed at auctions. To make wise decisions quickly takes experience. And that's why you went to those auctions and you were freezing. You were going, oh, this is too fast. Had you had a night, would you have paid 75 for that property that you put your cap at 70 on?
Maybe.
You might have slept on it, woken up in the morning and said, heck yeah, I can deal with $5,000. But those sorts of environments are really tough for the inexperienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I learned very quickly, like, and I'd spent a year crunching numbers. Like I knew the market super well. I knew exactly how many units I needed and how much tax I needed to pay on that property and what my insurance would probably be on it. Like I knew, especially once I had that triplex. And the first 3 buildings I bought were triplexes. You stick with what you know.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. So we're at 9 doors. And what year are we where 2 and 3 come in? Like how long did it take?
2017.
Okay, so we buy first one in 2013. 4 years later, we get 2 and 3. We're at 9 doors in 2017. And how much time is self-managing 9 doors taking? Have you replaced the midnight oil of number crunching with the midnight oil of project management and property management, or how did it look?
So those buildings were owned by landlords of a different caliber. They
High
were
or low
in
caliber?
low caliber,
I see.
older. The tenants were more complicated, but they didn't bother me. They didn't call me about anything. They were there a long time. They weren't looking to move every year or two. They just were very steady. I didn't have any movement from those properties for at least 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Like nobody moved.
Gotcha. So
We paid their rent.
it's not super consumptive of your time at the 9-unit level. So it's not like it's competing with the W-2 job and that like can't get any sleep, you know. It's not that. When does it start really? Do you start going at night as you're number crunching? I'm crunching the numbers. I don't have to work for the company anymore. Like when does that happen in time? What level of your portfolio?
So I got to about 20 doors, and that was by 2019.
Wow. 2017, 18, and 19 were very productive for you. You were well positioned, taking moves, making moves. Can we talk about the financing of all this? Where were you getting all this money? Where's the cheddar coming from?
Well, so that's like where I have to divulge something. So,
Okay.
so some of actually, so it wasn't a straight path at this point. So my father had passed away and I received one of his properties, which sounds like a gift horse, but was really a labor of love because they were mobile homes that were unlivable. that I had an apartment attached to a primary house that had so much termite damage. The floor was just completely disintegrated. It was just bad. Like, so I got this property with the potential for 8 units. I have it at 7 now, but it only had like 3 livable units at the time.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we had a bit of a, we had an inheritance that was
Yes.
probably your hardest project.
It
You
was
never would have
in
bought
many
it,
ways.
so to speak.
No, nobody would have bought it. They would have probably bought it and just put a farm on it. Like, honestly,
Just
it was
cleared it.
so, yeah. So it was more of a labor of love at that point. And that kind of like, but I still was investing. I was still working. I was undergoing infertility treatment. And at this point, I was actually working a second job.
Because the fertility treatments were so expensive.
Yes, I was working part-time at Starbucks, and Starbucks pays for infertility treatment.
Wow.
Yeah, so
So
I was
we're in
working full-time.
2019. We've inherited this property and brought it back to life. Like it sounds like this is a long-term project. You probably have more work to do on that property even
I'm still
still.
working on it.
Oh, doesn't every family from Lancaster County have one of these properties with like a hole with dirty fill and a couple mobile homes and like some rusted out vehicles on it? And it's just like, I hope they don't leave it to
Well, if
me.
you look at the aerial view from 2018, it was I like saved it and put it on my desktop for a while. I'm like, don't look like that no more. But it was so much work
You're leaving
from
your
like all the
mark.
vehicles and oh, so bad.
You are leaving your mark. So we're in 2019 and like you're working really, really hard. Like this is surprising to me because I thought you'd be getting to a point where like you're financially comfortable, but you're scared to leave the job. In truth, you're working 2 jobs. You're really trying to pursue this other goal of starting your family. So how does that play into the decision to eventually leave the W-2?
So things really changed like right around COVID for everyone, right? So right around the time that I lost my dad, shortly after I lost my dad, and I had this property that was like all blighted, and I had my properties. I had acquired 2 more properties also in that time period, 2 duplexes, and in the city. And it's funny too because a lot of times people think that I inherited like all my dad's stuff, and I'm like, no, like I inherited a mess. Like what my dad gave me was still a gift, but like also not in the way that people think it was at all. So let's like go backwards here a little bit. So like financing. So I had my W-2. My husband has his W-2. I was doing commercial loans. So I was able to purchase my properties based off of the profitability of the properties. Everything I bought was turnkey.
Oh, okay. So we're buying turnkey based off the rents on the property. I'm assuming a tremendous credit score, healthy W-2 income, steady financial situation. Again, you said you're not a fan of debt, so it's not like you're laden with personal debts and things like that. Okay. So that makes sense because I mean, people listening go, how does a gal working her, her corporate job and her husband with their own house doing all this, how do they continue to buy properties at this rate? And the answer is keep my financial house clean, get good at running numbers, and probably commercial lending. That's the
Yeah.
recipe.
Yeah. The commercial lending was really not having to always. There's so much limitation, and the commercial lending really helped a lot. I had a good relationship with my lenders. I was able to call them when I saw a deal. There were a couple that they turned down, not usually, but there were a couple that they turned down that they were just like, we're not going to take this deal. It didn't start happening till after 2020 though.
You started getting
So that's when things
rejected?
really changed. Say
You
what?
started getting rejected after 2020?
I started getting, because the brokers had changed at some of the, at some of the institutions, and they were like, I'm not as interested in this deal. There's not enough. But they were putting some hefty vacancy rates in there. Like they were running a 10% vacancy. And I was like, yeah, but I don't run a 10% vacancy. Like
Nobody does
they,
on residential.
no, I don't know what they were. Anyway, one of the jumps was like being in my career and saving and buying stuff. But then the other jump was being able to rehab and refinance. And that's when things really, really changed. That's when, the first the second 6 units that I bought, those other 2 buildings that I bought in 2017, they started turning. And they hadn't turned in a long time, even before I bought them. They weren't looking super great. I left them the way that they were because the tenants were satisfied. They weren't paying top dollar rent. They were fine. But in 2020, when one of them decided to leave and another one decided to leave at the same time, I said, I need to rehab this thing. I need to do something with it because, and I had time, because I had lost my job in like right around the time that I lost my dad. So my company was purchased by another company, and I had lost my full-time income, and I had a nice severance. Like I had a nice severance from that. And I didn't want to spend it because I needed to live off of it. But I took a good 6 months and like looked at my dad's blighted property, and I looked at my portfolio, and like I was just trying to get my bearings. I was still undergoing infertility treatment.
Okay.
And so the second jump was rehabbing some of these properties right around 2020 and raising the rents and being able to cash out refi and get cash for these properties and kind of build in that direction as opposed to always just saving the money on my own.
Gotcha. So let me see if I understand correctly. We bought the property, operated it as is for a while. In 2020, a couple things happened. COVID hits, you're not employed, and 2 tenants leave. You realize I've got to renovate these. Now that's interesting timing because availability and pricing of maintenance and rehabs skyrocketed in 2020.
Absolutely.
But so did rents. So the
Absolutely.
rents you were able to get on the other side. So how did you finance the renovations? Was that just cash in pocket, or you went to the bank to get that?
With almost every single property that we have a line of credit with it.
Okay.
So the one of the properties that I purchased, it appraised for $20,000 more than I bought it for, which was kind of a shock. I didn't expect that to happen. And so I said, hey, can I get that in a line of credit? They said, absolutely. Ask. Just ask.
Yeah.
And, that was a nice chunk of money to do some renovations with. And, I mean, they needed a lot of work, but it was mainly like flooring and new showers and new vanities and new kitchen tops and stuff like that. It wasn't
You
like
use the
full
line
debt.
of credit to pay to have the units renovated. Then you go back to the bank and go, hey, bank, property's now worth a lot more than my original loan.
Absolutely.
Can we wrap the original loan and this line of credit, I assume, balance into a 2020-2021 low interest special, the kind of mortgages we will frame and show our grandchildren?
Yes.
What amazing timing.
Yes. Timing. Absolutely. I want to say like it was all like personal like fortitude, but like also timing.
Well, preparedness meets opportunity. That's luck, right? Preparation meeting opportunity and recognizing it and taking those leaps and making those calls for not in 2020 going, there's a global pandemic. I shouldn't be spending money and doing this. Who knows what's happening? I met a lot of people who put their heads in the sand with real estate at that time, missing out on all their opportunity to make changes, to take advantage, to one, react to changes in the market, and then two, take advantage of new opportunities. And that's, I'm so impressed with this. This is awesome. Are you just figuring this out on your own, or did you have a mentor guiding you?
No, I didn't have a mentor. I just figured it out. And then, you take some steps forward and you take some steps back and you take some steps sideways. I did have a child. So like as part of 2020, had a baby.
In 2020, you had your baby?
Yeah. Well, the end of 2019. Yeah. So
I love it.
yeah. So I had, so I had a baby. I had an infant. I wasn't working my W-2 full time. I had a little bit of severance to buffer me, but it was time for me to also like continue working a little bit. So I had a part-time job. I was still also working at Starbucks. So I had 2 part-time jobs. I just held on to Starbucks for a really long time because I got free coffee.
Well, the ROI
Loved
worked
it.
out for you on Starbucks. So
Yeah.
that's so interesting because I also see people when they start their families, particularly those who worked a long time to start a family, everything stops once they have that kid. And that could have been very tempting, right? I've worked so hard to get here, to get this kid. I am going to, maybe be a stay-at-home mom, dedicate myself full time to this for this short period, these 5 years or whatever. I see a lot of people making that call, and I'm not here to say that's the right or the wrong call, but in terms of the momentum on your portfolio and what you've built, taking those actions, sacrificing that time during those years, I'm sure you're not regretting. I'm sure you're saying this was a good time.
So kind of the loose goal, especially when I first started investing, I actually had like a 5-year plan. I'm like, this is when I'm going to buy how many properties, and like, this is how much money I'm going to have, and this is when I'm going to be able to quit my job. That didn't work out in the first 5 years at all.
Right.
But I still had those goals because I knew that we were going to start a family. I didn't expect it to take as long as it did. But when it finally happened, then COVID happens, and my child went to daycare for like literally 3 weeks, and the daycare closed. So here I am with all these doors, my dad's property, an infant, I'm working 2 jobs. I'm like, wow, this is wild. And it's funny because I look back and I kind of criticize myself sometimes, like, why didn't I do XYZ faster? Like, why didn't I take care of this sooner? I'm like, well, because like I had a lot going on. Like, I just had a lot going on. I also had a building fire.
You do just kind of keep it going. When you have all that stuff going on, I think something women do is we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So there's often not a lot of reflection in those moments. Did you ever hit a wall on this journey, financially, emotionally, logistically, where you wondered, have I taken on too much? Do I need to stop? Am I out of my depth here? And I mean, once you're in it, did that ever happen for you?
If you're serious about buy and hold investing, you need tools, not hype. I'm PM Jen, and at holditwithpmjen.com, I've got the real stuff, a full step-by-step video series on how to evict a tenant in Pennsylvania, my best tips and tricks, and updates on where I'm speaking next. You'll also be able to download your free 2025 no bullshit playbook for buying and holding rentals in North Central PA. This is a 20-page playbook full of information about how to succeed in my market. It is candid and real and written by me. This is the stuff no one else will tell you because I actually do this work every day and I'm not shy about sharing what I know. So check it out at holditwithpmjen.com and follow me on all the socials. Let's buy and hold forever and ever. Amen.
I feel currently, now that I have 30 doors, and maybe I should back up before I say this a little bit. I stopped working in 2022, like January of 2022. So as soon as 2022 hit, I just quit my job. Like, I quit all the jobs. I decided to do real estate full time. At that point, I had a daughter. So I had 2 kids at that point, and I had been toying with the idea of leaving. I had done a lot of renovation to the property that had been my father's, and it was finally kind of up and running and doing what it was supposed to do. And I felt very hesitant to take that income. I just kept recycling the money from that right back into it. I was just very hesitant to take any money out of it because it was so blighted, and I just was very concerned that things were going to go sideways with that. So I guess like I probably could have left earlier, but like I was just really hesitant to, and I did end up refinancing that. So that worked out. It's really hard to refinance stuff with mobile homes.
It is.
It is. Anyway, so now that I have 30 doors, and I have like some of the, like, I have my father's campground. Don't know what to do with that. I feel that I have a lot of maintenance requests now. I just get pummeled like every single day with another thing. Holiday weekend, I just had water heater go. I had a wash machine go. 2 things that are very easy to handle. It's really some phone calls, but it's still the minutia of tenants. It's harder to screen tenants now. Tenants are a lot more particular. They're paying a lot in rent now. Rent is a much larger portion of people's income now, so their expectations are just very high, and I don't have a problem with that. The problem becomes when those expectations aren't met, and maybe they've outgrown a space, and it's time for them to move on, and in some cases I haven't raised their rent super much more, so they're staying in a place that they've outgrown, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they're frustrated because the market's weird and rents are really high. So they might be going from a $900 a month one bedroom, and then they're looking at like $1,350, $1,400, at least in Lancaster, for a two bedroom. That's a huge jump for people. So my problems have just changed. They've changed from like more like rehab and contractors to more like interpersonal. And so I don't like that as much as what I was doing.
I see. So the transition now, you feel like, I mean, and truly that makes sense with the portfolio you have. You're managing people, systems, and processes. And it sounds like you're also doing frontline customer service for the tenants, and you're coordinating your projects. It makes sense. Like at your level, you're doing all that, but your day-to-day is communication and influencing actions of others. Like it's all interpersonal stuff. And yeah, it's something I think a lot of people think when they get into real estate, they're going to get away from all that, that they get passive income and they no longer have to deal with people. They can be a curmudgeon if they want. And truly what you're sharing with me is right now the frustration is I have a lot of people who need from me.
Yeah. I didn't really feel like I was hitting a wall until people really started sucking like the life out of me, not being honest all the time. I don't know if that just comes with a larger number of tenants, or if it's the tenants that I'm renting to because the market has changed. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning behind it is, but I definitely feel like there's a lot more tenant need. There's always tenant need, but I just feel like they're much more needy now than they have been in the past.
Got it. Well, it makes sense, and that's something that a lot of property managers and landlords are talking about. On the flip side of like the challenges, is there something that's been more rewarding or profitable than you expected, or easier or more joyful about this? Are you taking naps in the middle of the day? We got those kids, probably not.
No, so I don't want to paint this as like easy at all. So I have my kids, and the goal was to spend time with them more. I wasn't ever going to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that just wasn't going to happen. It's not part of my personality. It's not me. I need adult interaction. I want to still have a career, but like I also want to spend more time with I had kids. I wanted to spend more time with them. So it's really tough with daycare. So daycares will not take your children when they're sick. So there have been some times where I just don't work for the entire week as in the business, meeting people. If I might take the kids with me to meet a contractor or something. So it has really forced me to examine, who am I hiring as contractors? How am I getting them access to these properties? It has in some ways made me very efficient in who I call and how I handle things. But then there's some things that really just require just me to look at it, because I can look at the entire picture. You hire a plumber, they might be looking at just the plumbing. They're not looking at the roof. They can't anticipate issues that are much larger. They're not looking at the tenants next door. They're not looking at, how the noise level upstairs, they're not looking at the entire picture. And sometimes it's actually a little disappointing when someone doesn't mention, like if my pest control guy goes in and I go in after him and I'm like, oh, like he didn't say anything about this, but it's not his job to.
Yeah.
And it's one of those trust things. Like it's one of the things that I struggle with when I think about, do I need to hire property management? Is anyone going to look at it like I do?
Right.
It's hard.
And the answer is no. Right? They don't see the 2 weeks you spent putting up new drywall, painting it, sanding it, putting in flooring. They didn't sleep on that floor on an air mattress for a week, renovating that unit like you did. So no, they don't look at it the same way. But I'll share with you, it is a different thing. It is like calling a super expert. So I don't look at it the same way you do, but I look at it with thousands and thousands and thousands of doors of experience. I see it very clearly for what it is. And so it's important for me to talk with owners about, like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to see a lot of stuff and I'm going to make recommendations you never even thought of. And then you're going to have things you want me to do. And we're going to talk about which of those things make sense. And that's part of how I figure out who to work with. So your average week now, first of all, how old are the kids now?
3 and 5.
Oh God, we're still preschool. Well, except 5. Did your 5-year-old start kindergarten this year?
Yes. So that has been like a new adventure, but it's tough because he only goes half day.
Yeah, that's
And
how
I'm like,
kindergarten
oh
works,
no.
Rebecca. We went half day.
I know, but like, I didn't realize how fast that would go. He goes on the bus at 8:30 and I got to pick him up at 11:30 and I'm like, wow.
I was going to
I was
say,
still
you're pretty
working.
much using all of kindergarten time on this podcast this morning.
That is exactly what's
Well,
happening.
thank you for
Yeah.
giving me some of your kindergarten time. So, okay, so we have a 5 and a 3-year-old, half day kindergarten. What does an average week, like, it's rent week. This is September 2nd as we record this. This is rent week. What is this week going to look like for you? Your working hours, that is.
So, since he's been going to kindergarten, he's only been getting, this is only like week 2.5. Yeah, so my weeks have changed drastically, and my mornings are probably going to be more paperwork heavy, which is really good for me. The paperwork aspect of it, I really should just hire a bookkeeper.
So that's
But I,
paying the bills, entering the rents, doing your QuickBooks, the license application came in, all the stuff. The bank wants your personal financial statement. That's paperwork.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so my mornings will probably be paperwork, and then things in the afternoon will be more, if I have showings, doing showings, if I have contractors to meet, meeting them, arranging for different things. So,
Can I ask, are your kids then in typically a daycare situation so you're free, or are you doing the daddy daycare method like your dad taught you, bringing them with?
so sometimes I bring them with, but my husband works from home. Yay. So we share an office. It's right here. I'm in the loft. So I'm like adjacent to his office right now. Or my office. It's our office. So he works from home and I very loosely work from home. And so my son's old enough now that he can come home. My husband can keep an eye on him. And he's fine after he's home from kindergarten.
Okay.
And then my daughter's still in daycare, but she's only in daycare 3 days a week. So
you're really being, and you use the word efficient, and I hear that from women when they talk about their work and when they have their babies and stuff. You just get hyper efficient. And I think that's an incredible lesson to take, that if you want a lifestyle that this produces, there is a level of work, but you can make it efficient. Let's talk a little bit about the systems and processes and tools you're using. So what does it take to run, Steyr Enterprises here? What sort of technology, tools, are you using anything like that we can glean to say, hey, this is how she's doing it?
yeah, so I use Rent Ready. I was using, so it was Cozy and then it changed to apartments.com. And even before that, I used eRent payments. And the reason that I switched to Rent Ready was I didn't like that so I know this isn't like entirely like how everyone does it, but I like doing it this way. I like charging a per day rent fee until it gets to 10% as opposed to just a straight 10%. That's just how I do it. I like doing it that way. It gives people the opportunity to, it prevents people from paying late, like waiting the entire time period in order to, I don't know. But anyway, so I didn't have the ability to do that before. So one of the reasons that I switched to Rent Ready was they purchased eRent payments, and I had used eRent payments before. So I could charge a per day late fee, which I really liked. Mm-hmm. It took the me out of it. I didn't have to log in and put in a late fee and worry about it because I was getting lazy about it. I wasn't
You
good
were
about
automating the late fees to ensure that they were being charged. Right. A lot of
they were automated before, but they weren't correct. So after 5 days, they would get a $50 charge, which is $10 a day until the 5th day. What I should have been doing was I should have been on the 5th day, they get hit with the 10%, but I wanted to charge a per day late fee, but then they weren't getting more after the $50. And I did really, I did fine with that. That served me well. for a very long time until I got people that just were chronically late and they abused it. And that's all it takes, right? Is just one person to abuse one of your systems to have to change it. And so that's when I switched to Rent Ready. Rent Ready has a component where you can store your invoices and match them to your bank transactions, which I really like. So it's much cleaner to give my accountant. It keeps me more organized. I can go paperless.
So within
I still
that
have a
Rent
lot of
Ready
people.
system, it sounds like you're accepting payments, you're doing the bookkeeping of like, oh, tenant owes a late fee, they owe security deposit, whatever. Are you doing any tenant communication through their work orders, anything like that?
That has been a training piece. They still want to text me to tell me things are wrong. They still want to text me to ask me questions. So the people that I might communicate with twice a year, please text me. Like, if that's how you feel comfortable, please text me. But like the people that are like a little bit more picky and they're like, my water tastes funny, I want them to put in a ticket.
I see. So you're working there on your compliance with people. So we're using I guess we call it a property management software. So the numbers are in one place, your tenant contact info. Does that give you the ability to email and text your tenants through that system?
I can, yes. Yeah, I can. I don't, but I can. Yeah.
Well, you
Yeah.
can just block people's numbers. You can just send them a final message and go, you're no longer going to use this number. The only way to do it is through here, and then send them an introduction.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
let me-
I know it's getting.
Don't let me in your Rent Ready while you're not looking. I'll put everybody onto your system because with the large portfolio we're running, tenants try all kinds of things, right? They want to Facebook message you. They know you from church. They want to go up to you in the grocery store and go,
I've been meaning to tell you about my toilet.
and it's like, and I've had all those things happen, and I am the queen of boundary setting, and we just don't tolerate any of that. And it doesn't mean that it always absolutely comes through the portal. We certainly take phone calls here, but we're paid to. We have a whole staff. That's kind of the deal. Not like you. You are running a system. So we're using Rent Ready. Sounds like you are doing things off your cell phone. Like that's how you're in direct contact with everybody. Any assistant, remote assistant, anything like that you're using?
So I am ready to have a VA, or like I am ready. I went to I've been to a couple conferences now, and I was kicking around the idea, and of course, like when you're kicking around an idea is when you don't get any phone calls. And I was like, what would a VA be doing right now? Like, I'm not getting any phone calls. I'm not having any issues. Like, it's just me. Like, the only thing that can be done is the things that I can do. And I think it's one of those things. It's this idea that like you have to have all the answers and use it perfectly right out of the gate. And you don't. You don't. Just hire a VA and start giving them things to do is what I really need to do.
Well, Rebecca, I'll make the offer there. You have my email. Anytime you want to meet my remote team members, see the process management system we use, how we train them and bring them on, I'd love to. And they're doing the sorts of tasks your remote team member would do. So talking to tenants, dealing with rent, dealing with payment plans, processing applications, routine requests, maintenance coordination, hiring vendors, getting things out of vendors. And then Lindsay, the one who's going to actually edit this for us, she's been my executive assistant now for, well, it's going to be 6 years in like 4 months. It has been a long time. So much of what you see and is credited to me is actually coming from Lindsay. So these folks are incredibly useful, and I endorse it particularly. And that brings me to the future then. So you're really bootstrapping this now, but you have reached a point where this is pretty consumptive. This is your full-time gig. Where does this go from now? You're a mom to 2 preschoolers. We've got 30 doors. When I check in on you in 5 years and then 10 years or 20 years, what does the future look like? What are you working toward right now? How do you see it?
So my original plan was to have about 10 properties. I didn't like think about it in the terms of units. I just thought 10 multifamily properties. I have like 9 now. And to make like 6 figures, and then I don't like that, so paying it down. And that was like my original thought process. And then I could just hire a property manager because it would be all profit at that point, because I'm not paying a mortgage. That was just like the initial thought. And now I'm just like, no, I can't do that. I can't possibly do that. Mainly because I'm a little addicted. Like I'm always like shopping and I'm always thinking of things and I'm like, oh, it'd be so cool to do this. It'd be so cool to do that. I like the creative ability. Like you don't have, like, I feel like an old man. I'm the landlord. Like that is what I'm doing. I'm buying and holding. It's not interesting. It's very, I feel like I'm like 80 instead of like I'm the old fellow that owns properties and I'm the landlord. But there's a lot more interesting things. There's flipping, and I have contractors that do flips, and I have contacts that do flips, and there's short-term rentals, and I have that campground, and I have this event space, and I'm like, you know, the wheels are turning, and there's some more creative aspects that I would really like to try out. So now that I'm not working, stepping a little bit more away from the day-to-day minutia of toilet unclogging, like having a more creative vision and coming up with more creative things. I like the idea of affordable housing, maybe collaborating with somebody on something. It's very necessary. Lancaster just really lacks it. Everything's very expensive, and there's not enough of people. I'm sure there's plenty of people working on it, but there's not enough attraction to really come up with some things. And I have some ideas which are kind of cool that might be might be something I do with. So I still want to grow. I want more creative. That's what I want. So I'm looking more creative. Still looking for growth, and I think the hardest years have been like, I've been through the hardest portion. Like my kids now, I still have a few more years where they're going to be, you know, difficult on my schedule.
The car seat
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, that is absolutely it. The car seat years. So I have a few more years where it's going to be really difficult. But once I actually have a 5-day work week, I'm not going to know what to do with myself. I'm not going to be saddled with like all these bizarre schedule restrictions. You know, the kids might be homesick, but they're not going to be homesick anywhere near like the level that they have been. And I do not blame anyone for wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, because it is so difficult to, if your daycare can't watch your kids and you can't work, you feel like so trapped. So there's been times where, you know, they're home and I'm trying to bang out stuff on my laptop and I'm responding to people. I was doing pickup orders for some of the contractors that I was working with. So I have Home Depot pickup down. I will go into the contractor section. I have a trailer that I put on the back of my car. They throw that stuff in there, and I don't even get out of the car. I don't take the kids out. I, you know, give them a high five and say, thanks, guys.
Good for you for figuring this out. So you're really driven by the creative part. You seem to enjoy the like finding opportunities, solving the problem. Does anything else drive you? Is it money? Is it legacy? Do these two little kids have a bunch of hopes and dreams pinned on them? Like, you're growing this and doing this. I mean, and by the way, I'll give you the compliment. You're having a lot more success than your father had. And that's a testament to probably some things that he taught you and things that you saw of him. But do you have any aspirations that way beyond trying new things and doing new things? Legacy, money, what's driving you to keep taking risks?
Yeah, so I don't want to pin a bunch of stuff on the kids. Like, I think it would be great if they got into real estate. I think that would be really fun. I see a lot of like creativity in my daughter. I feel like she could be like a very like good creative soundboard at some point. My son always says he wants to be a contractor, which like also I'm like, really? You want to be a contractor? But he goes like on these job sites. The one job site we stopped at, this is adorable. They were playing Rod Stewart, and I guess the music just sounded very upbeat, and there were electricians there. And my son goes, Mommy, the contractors are dancing. And I was like, they're doing no such thing. But like, it was adorable. Like, he really just like thought that they were like
Having
they
a
were, like,
party.
friends. Yeah, like they're there and they're listening to music and they're ripping stuff up and they're like fixing stuff, and he just thought that was like the greatest thing. So I appreciate that, like, he can go to a job site and like find the cool in it, you know. But as far as like bigger things, yeah, like just staying on the creative vibe. I already have done some travel in that, like, so I went to a couple conferences for 2 weeks. Like I went to the conference and then I stayed away for 2 weeks, and both times it was the first of the month. So like I have the bravery of like, you know, hey, I have people I can call. I don't need to be there. So I think that is really important. We never took vacation as kids. My dad couldn't leave. He didn't feel comfortable leaving. He didn't feel comfortable that people would be able to understand the systems that he had in place. And they probably couldn't. It would be a little bit difficult. But I really I'm trying to set myself up that I'm not as entrenched and I am the only person that can handle the thing. So
Freedom.
yeah.
And I hear from you, the ultimate goal is the freedom, right? Which is kind of what you told me from the beginning. Dad took naps in the middle of the day if he wanted. And he got to pursue the jobs that he wanted and the interests that he had. And you're doing exactly that. Exactly that. Before we wrap up here, I wonder if you wouldn't share words for two different people. So the first person is represented by you in 2013 when the friend you were going to do this with went and did her own thing, and you're on your own and you're having to like shit or get off the pot, and you made the decision to shit, I guess, in this, you know, classy way I put this, but you made the decision to take the leap. And I want you to talk to that woman who is in that place going, am I going to do this? Am I going to finally like sign on the line? What would you say to her?
I don't know, like it's hard because a lot of times people look back and they regret stuff, but I don't really have like a ton of regret. I think anything that I would tell myself, I would probably just make myself more nervous. You know, like, oh, like maybe you should reconsider buying old buildings because they break a lot. You know, like that's just like another piece to add to like the anxiety. But I've heard other investors and other people in like I'll name drop Judah. I think at one point he posted to the early investor, just do it. And I was like, but I get it. There are so many times I go to meetups and people are just spinning their wheels and they are spending so much time over analyzing, and life is lifing them. You know, there's still, a lot of them are agents. So they're in the sales business and they're in the trenches. And I think just do it really is the right, and not because they should get into it quicker, because you might not even like it. Like you might not even like it. I've known enough of people now that have become landlords and they hate it. It's a lot less attractive and a lot less, they don't see the benefit in it. They don't see the appreciation. They're not willing to stick with it. There's other aspects of real estate. You know, you can do land deals. You can do
private money lending. You can do wholesaling. Well, kind of. I don't know.
sort of.
You know, there is a million ways to go. Buy and hold is the one that holds you the most accountable. You must follow all of your own decisions forevermore. That's kind of the deal with buy and hold. And I hear from you, you know, you're reluctantly giving Judah Hoover's advice, which is to just do it. But I hear you going, ooh, I feel a little nervous telling you that, but that is really what I need to tell you.
Yeah, just do it. Like, just do it. Like, follow through. Because you still learn by doing. And I think that's probably one of the things that is the most satisfying is the ability to anticipate now. I can look at things and I can anticipate things that I would not have been able to anticipate before.
Yeah. You got better at this. You got more skills, you had more
much
reps,
better at it.
longer duration. Let's talk to the woman in 2022 who was in those final days of deciding whether or not she was going to resign from her W-2s, right? Because you had two at the time, you know. And she's going, okay, I got these two kids. I got these properties. By the way, I got the loans to go with these properties. And do I quit the paycheck and the benefits, right? That's a big one for you and your group. Talk to her. What advice would you give her as she debates the should I stay or should I go, this W-2?
So it's funny because I was in a position at that point where sometimes I see tenants in the same position where life is just lifing them really hard. I have the kids. I have multiple jobs. Like, I am just waking up and doing the thing every day. And it's really hard to know if you're making a clear decision or if you're making an emotional decision. And I knew at that point I could probably step away, but I was still nervous about doing that. And one of the thoughts in the back of my mind was, I need someone to tell me whether I should do this or not. Like, I need someone to look at my finances and tell me whether or not I should do this. And I guess, like, my advice to myself was, so I was considering joining an investor, like a mentor group. Mm-hmm. And I probably should have done that. I didn't. I thought about doing it later, but the price went up like $3,000. And I'm like, I'm still not gonna spend like $3,000 more than it was like just last year. But I probably should have done that. I was really close to pulling that trigger, and I should have done that. It would have put me in a different headspace. It would have put me in front of more experts. I have been too much of a soultrepreneur in doing too much on my own and not leaning more on other people's knowledge, being afraid to ask, being afraid. So I should, and that's even information or like feedback that I could have given myself from the beginning. Okay. I need to learn more from others. I shouldn't be trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. And I think that's something that really, I don't mean to offend you, but surprises me about you, because I'm so impressed by what you've built and how you've navigated it. And I meet a lot of people who've been through this journey a million times, and to achieve what you've achieved with the resources and on your own, like you have, like, yes, you've gone to the meetups and things, but you're right, like that. And you're right. I think that's really useful advice. So what I heard there was, incorporate other people into the journey so you can start to bounce your realisticness off of them. So in your case, it sounds like a financial planner sort of person would have maybe given you that rubber stamp of like, yes, I've looked at your situation here and you can give up the W-2s. I think you'll be safe. You kind of were looking for that. But also, had you had just more people in your world, you would have heard this conversation 4 or 5 times. You would have heard 4 or 5 different people talk about their point of view and their perspective as they move through that decision. It's super, super valuable, Rebecca, and I hope maybe God put me in your path because I am a connector. I want you to be connected to all kinds of people, and I'm not big on paying for it because I'm cheap, because I'm from Southern Lancaster County too. And you know, these mastermind groups you're talking about, and you kind of brought up a very interesting other like pivot point that you said, I had this opportunity to join this group. It was a significant investment, but it represented a significant opportunity for me. And in your case, you decided against it, and you're expressing a little bit of regret that you feel like, ooh, had I taken that fork, I feel like I could have done it differently. That's really important for people to hear, that that it's possible that you can find one of those that makes sense for you. I know I look at these groups, I look at their price tags, I look at what they're pointing out. Very rarely do I find one that hits me in a way that I go, oh, I share values. I share values with what's going on in that group. I understand. I feel like the people I'm going to meet in there aren't going to make me roll my eyes. And it sounds,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I think it sounds like that was that opportunity. And I'll push you and go, so does that group still exist? And does that group have an opportunity for you to join now?
It does, but it
price
is
tag keeps
even more
going up.
expensive. It's now $6,000 more than it was when I was looking at it. So it is very expensive.
Are you debating it now? Or are you kind of have that
No,
in
I'm
your
not
past?
debating it. Yeah,
You're not?
no. I think, yeah, it's not on the table anymore. But I think that I know that I have the ability to find people that will. So I went to Invest Her Con and I met some ladies there. I made some good connections, and something that really pushed me, they had like a competition there, and it really pushed me to talk to every single vendor and have like a deep conversation with every single vendor. So it's good. It's ultimately a good thing. You know, there's more. It also really just opened my mind to other investment strategies. There's so much. I'm like the outlier. Most women do not want to be the landlord.
You are the outlier, Rebecca. You are. We are. We are. Bitches who like talking to people on the phone about their toilets. Just a weird kink we got.
Yeah. It's just, well, and I'm so quick now. I can connect the dots. I ran into a tenant. He had a hot water heater go, or a water heater go. I caught it right away, but I stepped into his bedroom, and he had a soft spot in his floor. I said, "You have a soft spot in your bedroom floor?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't notice." And I was like, "Is your air conditioner leaking?" That's exactly what was happening. But like, I knew exactly why there was a wet spot.
It makes you feel like a witch when you can do that sort of thing. And you're right. And here's the thing, you know, Lancaster County or Lancaster City probably, and county even, properties better than most because you're in them every day. And I'm the same way here. You tell me you've got something going on, I'm like, check the chase. Check the chase. Your cast iron's broken or something like that, you know.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I've had that happen too.
So, Rebecca, thank you so much for taking all of this kindergarten time this morning to give us your story. Guys, you don't hear stories like this often. Rebecca has an unusual story, and she's a woman doing this on her own. And you heard how she started her family and is raising young children while she's doing this. That goes to tell you it is absolutely possible. She's making choices and sacrifices to make it possible. If you want to reach out to Rebecca, reminder, if you have any ideas for a campground in need of some TLC in Conestoga, PA, you should be emailing Rebecca at styer.rebecca@gmail.com. That is styer.rebecca@gmail.com for help with Southern Lancaster County campgrounds. And as always, I'm your host, PM Jen, imploring you to please, please, please hold your properties forever and ever. We're never going to sell. Okay, thanks guys. Love you. Next time. Oh my God, you guys are gonna love this. Listen up. When I go, so I do a lot of, you know, going into properties with new potential clients. So these are new landlords. They might be experienced landlords. And if they're doing the knocking, it's always, no. Hey, John, it's Brenda. And if I'm responsible for the knocking, it's, hey, who's here? And they go, what are you doing? I'm like, you catch one nudie. Yeah. You yell so loud from that point forward. I will not have any miscommunication about my entry. Thank you very much. Cover yourself.
I have one very in particular. These boys knew that I was coming. They're college students. It was 10 o'clock. I've got this whole group. I've got a parent in the group. Like, we're all going in to look at it. It was the church.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I knock on the door and the guy's like, come on in. And he is frying eggs in nothing but those tighty whities. And I stress the tight. They were doing a lot of work, a lot more work than he was frying those eggs. And he just looks over and he goes, what's up? You want some eggs? And I'm like, nope. I'm like, but you might want to put some pants on because somebody's parent is here too. And he's like, oh, no problem. Puts on an apron. You're good. They come in, they do the thing. He's still over there cooking. At this point, he's got bacon. And we're leaving. And I said, hey, thanks. And I go to shut the door. And he goes, if you want to come back for eggs and bacon, you're welcome to. And I'm like, I'm not. Thanks, though.
Did you hear that subtle brag? She's like, and this college boy in his underpants wanted me to come back and eat eggs with him.
It was absolutely not flattering. Like, I was so taken back. I was just like, bro, your panties are out.
It never fails to surprise me about how people are dressed when you go into their house. Or not dressed. And like, and in their beds, unconscious, or maybe just on their phone. Like, you know how you wake up and you scroll. And like, I remember just recently I was with two nurses. They were a couple. They were in nursing. They were looking to buy this multi-unit building, and we're walking through it. And there is a man in the bed laying under the, like you said, just the thinnest sheet, just the thinnest wisp of a
Whisper.
And how do I know he was naked under the sheet? It was that thin. Like, it was that thin, and I can state that as a fact. And I'm in there with these people looking to buy this building, and I'm just like, a business professional, and you're nude and I think maybe conscious, and this is a weird dynamic, and I don't like it. And the way my parents raised me, you get up out of bed when people are in your house. Right. You're up out of bed, on your feet, ready for anything.
You're not just buying rentals. You're building a future. One where your time is your own, your family is secure, and your hard work actually means something. That's the real power of buy and hold real estate. But managing those properties yourself, that's how dreams turn into burnout. At One Focus Property Management, we turn rental properties into wealth building machines. Step 1, go to onefocuspm.com. You'll get an inside look at our proven process and free resources built for local investors. Step 2, reach out and we'll build you a custom stabilization plan to take the weight off your shoulders. We've been the market leader for 13 years in Lycoming, Clinton, Northumberland, Montour, and Columbia counties. And we do it all to give you more protection, less work, and absolutely no drama. That's onefocuspm.com. Go check it out.